68% of Google searches in early 2026 ended with 0 clicks. And essentially what that means is 7 out of 10 people searched for something and then never left Google. They got their answer and then they either asked another question or they moved on to something else completely, but they never actually like clicked through to a website.
Hey there, welcome to the Dr. Marketing Tips Show. I'm Jennifer.
And I'm Corey.
And today we're getting into something that has been coming up in every single conversation we've been having with medical practice administrators in the last couple of weeks. Basically something has changed with Google and people are noticing that website traffic is down. Call volume, maybe it's down, maybe it's not, but it does feel a little different and no one can quite put their finger on why it might be happening.
Yeah, so this is something that, we meet regularly with a lot of our clients, and it's something I've been talking about quite a bit as we are producing some new reports. And, it's just something that we're paying attention to. And I think that it's become a regular topic of conversation. So glad to dig into that a little bit on the pod today.
Yeah, so before we get into the numbers and the strategy around the whole thing, let's just go ahead and set the table. What's actually going on with Google right now?
So there's a couple of things that are going on. The short version is the way that people are using not just Google, but just the internet and search in general is fundamentally changing, and it's happening quick. So, for the last handful of years, it was pretty simple. You produce some good content, you rank well in search, people will click on your link, they go to your website, you got to have a good site, and then some of them become patients. That's, very basic, but that's kind of what we were working with. But now that's changing, and part of it is because of these AI overviews. So if you've used Google lately, I'm sure that you've noticed those things. So that's these AI generated kind of summaries that appear at the top of search results. And if you do that on your phone, it takes up most of the screen. And so what we're finding is people are still searching, still asking questions, still kind of engaging with search engines. Sometimes it's Google, sometimes it's Bing, sometimes it's ChatGPT or Claude or whatever. Perplexity is another one. But they answer the question, and then you don't have to do anything because you get your answer. So there's no reason to click through to a website because you got your answer about, whatever it is. Why does my wrist hurt, or what is this thing on my skin? Whatever question you're asking, there's no reason to actually go any further. And so what we're seeing is a decline starting in new organic traffic.
Yeah, and I'm seeing a huge uptick when I'm presenting to clients on the overall impressions of how many times their brand's being seen, but a decline in the traffic across the board. I will say those little AI overviews that are coming when you're searching on your phone. I do a lot of voice search now, where I didn't previously do that. I go right into Chrome, hit the voice search, and it gives me an answer right back, and it does it in an audible way, so I don't even have to pay attention to it. But they take up my whole screen, but they're super helpful. Just the way we're changing the way we find things now, and the whole search process is, completely been upended. And Google's the number one when it comes to search, so of course, Google's making changes to account for all this.
Right. And that's the thing, is these are not gonna go away. If anything, they're gonna become more prominent because, like you said, the behavior is kind of changing where, people are looking on their phones or they're using Gemini or, some type of chat interface, whatever it may be. And because of that, even if you show up in an AI overview, as an example, really what will happen is if you get cited, there's a small section or a box off to the side that says here's where that information is kind of pulled from. And, you got to kind of hope that people will click into that. Or what I've been telling folks is that, we may start to see less traffic, but the people that actually do make it through are going to be a little bit further down the funnel. So I've been comparing it kind of to window shopping, right? So if let's say you're a runner and your knee starts to hurt. So you go to Google and you say, hey, my knee hurts if I step this certain way or whatever, what can I do? So you're going to get an answer which a couple years ago, a couple months ago even, maybe that would have taken you to a local orthopedic website, and then you can read a blog about it and you say, hey, you know what, maybe I should get this checked out. That's kind of the old way of thinking. The new way is you're going to ask that question, you're going to get an answer, and then you're going to move on. But if you make it to that website and you say, you know what, who's the best knee surgeon near me? Then you go into the website or the Google business listing, and then you wind up there. Well, you're pretty well on the path to becoming a patient. So even though there may be less people, we're going to get rid of some of those looky-loos, but we're still going to convert on the people that are coming to the site is the idea.
So what does this actually look like in terms of data? Is this a small shift that, yeah, we should pay attention to it? Or is this something significant, as in we should really pay attention to it and come up with a game plan?
Yeah, so there's this whole idea of this zero-click search, and there was actually a recent study that came out. It was produced by SparkToro and SimilarWeb, where they said that 68% of Google searches in early 2026 ended with 0 clicks. And essentially what that means is 7 out of 10 people searched for something and then never left Google. They got their answer and then they either asked another question or they moved on to something else completely, but they never actually like clicked through to a website.
68% is a really big number. That's wild. So basically, people are searching more than ever, you know, but less of them are coming to the websites. That's basically what this is.
Right. And then on top of that, what's interesting and it aligns perfectly is that this, like you said, the total kind of search volume is still growing. So it's not like Google's dying or anything like that. But they're getting their answers kind of inside Google, and this is accelerating quickly. So this zero-click idea where people are not clicking through, it grew from 56%. That was the previous zero-click number last year, and this year it's up to 69%. So it jumped essentially 13 points in 1 year. That's a massive shift in a very short amount of time.
So in terms of search, where does this hurt the most? Is it across the board, or is it just certain types of searches that are being affected?
Yeah, so kind of like what I was talking about a little bit earlier, it's these informational type of searches that are really impacted. The questions, what are the symptoms of carpal tunnel? What's wrong with my knee? Like I said a second ago, what can I do for my ankle? Those kinds of things. Because those used to drive a lot of traffic to healthcare sites or practice sites. And now the AI just kind of answers them. So there was a study from Seer Interactive, and they looked at 25 million organic search impressions across like 40 something organizations. And they found that when an AI overview is present, the click-through rate drops 61%. So basically, if you get an AI overview, then no one is clicking through because, again, you don't need to. You get your answer, and then you're on to the next thing.
So, if 100 people search, only 35 people or so are coming through to your website. Whereas before, all this time, energy, effort, money that you put into it, if 100 people searched, let's say 95 people came to your website. Now we're looking at only 35. So all those efforts, yeah, we don't want to say they're for naught, but at the same time, like it's just the behavior has shifted and we have to once again shift.
Right. And then on top of that, if what we're also finding, there was a study that came out from a company called Bright Edge, and what they found was that nearly 100% of treatment and procedure searches trigger an AI overview. Meaning, if you are asking those questions as a potential patient, almost 100% of the time in Google, you're going to get an AI overview. So that completely kind of takes the agency away from ranking #1 and those kinds of things, because it doesn't matter. The data is showing that people are, whether they want to or not, being kind of shifted away from that, I'm going to use air quotes, the old way of searching, and going into this new sort of AI first way of searching. And there's not much you can do about it because we're playing in their sandbox.
Wow, that's really sobering. I imagine there's some kind of silver lining in that, because otherwise, why would you even bother to have a website anymore?
Right. So kind of like what I was saying is, I was alluding to this a little bit earlier. There's a meaningful kind of silver lining here. So the people that do make it through are going to be really apt and ready to perform some type of an action. You're going to get rid of all the people that were just question and answer searching. I've shared this example before on the pod, but uh, for a rehab clinic that we used to work with, we did really well from a SEO standpoint. And for a while, if you would search for certain topics around like knee exercises and hip exercises, they were the number one result in the country, which is cool. And it was great to see that number go up. I mean, we were getting literally hundreds of thousands of clicks per month based on this. But that's not hundreds and thousands of patients. That was just people looking for good information. We got cited as the good information. That obviously is no longer the case, but that's it still does well locally and those kinds of things. So my point in all of that is to say that if someone is intent on searching, they're still going to find you. There's just going to be less of those kind of very top level organic kind of growth numbers. So for example, we used to report all the time to clients, month over month or quarter over quarter, and say, we're seeing X percentage growth in organic search traffic. And now that's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, it's not. And so basically, Google is saying, if you got a question about healthcare, we're going to give you answers to it. But if you want to find a doctor, we're going to actually send you somewhere to go find your doctor.
Right, you're still going to get kind of the traditional local results. So that's like the maps, or the what they call like the map pack, where you show up in the top 3 results, those kinds of things. Which basically means, yes, your website matters, because the people that do get through are still going to need to establish that trust. They're still going to need to book an appointment. They're still going to need to convert. So that piece matters. We've been saying for a very long time that Google Business also matters. I think now one of the shifts here is that the funnel is kind of changing shape, if you will, and the Google Business still really matters, and it may matter more now than it ever has before. So more people are getting their answers from AI and never clicking. But again, those people that are clicking, they're further along. So they're not just curious, they're ready to do something.
So we talked about, I can't remember if we talked about it today or on a previous podcast, but Google just went through a major algorithm update. Can you explain just a little bit about what this means and how it might impact our listeners?
Yeah, so it's kind of related to what they're doing here. So they go through a couple times a year, they do what's called a core update. It's like Google going into the engine kind of their search system and tinkering. They'll adding parts and changing the way that things are weighted. They don't really tell you what exactly changes. They don't really tell you what to do differently. They just kind of flip a switch, and then over the course of a couple of weeks, as this thing rolls out, you'll start to see rankings bounce around and do different things depending on different industries and those kinds of things. And so this last one, one of the things that it seemingly has done is they're leaning more and more into, again, the AI search piece of it. And so we're kind of feeling the results of that.
So a site may have been ranked number one, now they're, number 5 or number 7 on the list.
Right, exactly. Yeah, some sites will bounce back, some not so much. The June 2025 core update was one of the more significant ones recently. This one I think was not as significant, because it's not like we were introducing and kind of rolling out 100% of these AI overviews for search queries, but still it does impact sites, absolutely.
So what drives these shifts, and why does Google always do this?
Well, I think they always do it because, I mean, if you think about how Google works, they need to improve the quality of search results, because if the search result is good, people will come back to Google. When people come back to Google, they get served ads. And then when they get served ads, Google makes money. So when you're looking from what this means from an organic side, there's this acronym that they like to use called EAT, which is EEAT. It's experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. And so Google wants to kind of surface content from people who actually know what they're talking about, and not just AI slop or content that's been optimized to kind of game the algorithm. And so that's good news for healthcare practices and listeners here. Real physicians giving real expertise, because you kind of inherently have that credibility. So if you can get those things onto the website, you're going to be better off for those. And again, somebody was asking me this the other day. They're like, well, what does this mean from a Google Ads standpoint? Because you said that searches are starting to go down. Does that mean that my clicks are going to go down, or I'm going to see less results that way? And the answer to that is maybe. I think that it's kind of the Wild West at the moment, but Google they have to balance a lot of things at once, because they cannot upset their main source of revenue, which is advertising. But they also have to find a way to kind of get that into overviews. Jen, like you said, you do a lot of searching through the voice search, and so audio, and so it's hard to like insert an ad into that. So it's interesting. I don't know what they're going to do there, or like what the end result is going to be, but I would imagine that it's going to change from now to the next 12 months or whatever. It's going to be totally different.
So I want to grab onto something you said. You kind of mentioned like, well, if your doctor has the credibility, then maybe your doctor should be writing the content or approving the content. I know this is something we talk about all the time internally, because there's some data out there to say, like, if you have your content has an author to it, it'll perform better potentially in this new world. And then we've had these conversations like, well, how the heck are we going to get all the doctors to really review content? And does this mean that marketing just stops because they're busy? So are you suggesting that a doctor needs to actually write all this content and approve it, and we have to put their face on it? Or are you saying something else?
Well, there is some data out there that says that when you can actually tie content to an author, it does tend to do better in the algorithm. What that means for a medical practice, that's tricky, because if you're a practice with 20 physicians, there's no way you're going to be able to get everyone to buy in and review things in a timely manner, and not try and step all over each other to say, like, where's my post? Why aren't we focused on this? However, just by having kind of the domain authority and the domain expertise, we are in a good spot as healthcare marketers compared to a lot of other industries. One thing that we've been saying for a very long time on the Doctor Marketing Tips show is, if you can have, even if it's on your phone, but if you can get a provider to answer some questions, take that and turn that into written content. So you can quote them in that because they said it, and then you embed the video. That's some of the best stuff you can get.
Yeah, so let's talk about where all this is heading, and then let's try to I feel like this is the conversation that we could have over and over, because it's changing so fast. So rather than do a super long episode, maybe we break this episode into two, just because it's significant, the changes that we're seeing. But let's talk about where all this is heading, because I think this either excites people or it scares the heck out of them. It's either going to get people like jazzed up about, their career and how to do this, or they're going to say, what, maybe now's the best time to retire. We've been talking a lot about agentic AI with our clients. What is this, and how does it actually impact clients?
Yeah. So right now, I think a lot of people are familiar with the way that these kind of like LLMs work, which is like these large language models, which is basically like, I'm going to type in a question or use my voice, and then it's basically going to just chat back to me. Agentic AI is when it actually does stuff for you. So like right now, we're seeing that kind of roll out in simple terms. For example, you could go to Gemini on an Android phone, and you could say, hey, Gemini, will you reorder my last order from DoorDash or whatever, and then it'll say, sure, do you want that sandwich from the deli down the street? Click submit. You hit yes, and it'll actually like run through and do it for you. So essentially, what that means is you actually don't need DoorDash anymore because the agentic AI is doing it for you. That's a problem for a different industry, different podcast. But eventually, what's going to happen is it's going to be able to perform these actions on your behalf. So, for example, if I'm a patient, I'm that runner that we were talking about earlier. I twisted my ankle or whatever. I can say, Gemini or whatever, find me the best foot and ankle surgeon that has an opening. Look at my calendar, see when I've got a 2-hour block of availability, and then make sure they're in network with my insurance and go ahead and book that for me. And then it's going to be able to run out and do that. And you just press confirm.
I think that's the wild, wild west, really,
Yeah.
because the truth is we're seeing that in service-based industries right now.
Right.
We're seeing it with painters, handy people, ordering, like hiring a plumber, an air conditioned person, because those are quick and easy. I need to check my calendar, book it. I think when we get into healthcare, that's the holy grail. That's like the highest level of agentic. But the fact is we have EHRs and PHI and you name it. And so I think it'll be a more of a slug to get to that place.
Agreed.
Doesn't mean we won't, but I think back to kind of like consumer expectations and patient behavior. The behavior is going to adjust. Therefore, the expectation of why can't I, get a doctor the same way I order food or the same
Mhm.
way, like our expectations are going to adjust. Therefore, healthcare will have to adjust as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this, from a service-based side, I think within, I don't know, 12 months, 24
Yeah.
months, let's say,
Hmm.
that's going to become the norm. Like that will be regular. People will be doing that without question to reorder sandwiches or get a handyman's at the house or whatever. Healthcare, yeah, we're probably several years away from that being okay because a lot needs to change. But I don't think that that's, some far off distant thing where you just go, well, I don't have to worry about that. Like it's one of those things where, yeah, it's going to take a little bit longer because healthcare just in general is typically when there's big technological shifts like this, a couple years behind. But it's coming.
I think you're right. It's coming. But a lot of things been coming for a lot of years,
Right.
and
Very true.
what's going to change very quickly is the way that we search for things and our consumer expectations. I don't know that healthcare is going to keep up at the same pace, but that's a different podcast for a different day. So, Corey, this has already been kind of a long episode. I think we should go ahead and wrap it up here, and we'll pick up where we left off in our next episode, which is a little bit more of a deep dive into some of this agentic AI and things of that nature. How's that sound to you?
Sounds great. Let's do it.
Awesome. So, with that, I'm Jennifer.
I'm Corey.
We'll see you next time on the Dr. Marketing Tips Show. Thanks a bunch.
Bye, guys.
More like this, hit like and subscribe so you'll always be alerted to new episodes when they come out. And if you want information about us, visit us over at insightmg.com. That's insightmg.com. We'll see you on the next episode.